for a year, those of us who looked at the evidence and said, this doesn't look like a natural spillover event. All of the evidence points toward this being an engineered virus that leaked out of a laboratory. And lo and behold, it turns out that the people who offshored the work to that laboratory are also in charge of the cover-up of the leak. They are also in charge of our public health response. And I keep trying to put it in proper context. We live in a universe that is many billions of years old. Life has evolved on this planet for 3.5 to 4 billion years. Our species arose fully a couple 100,000 years ago. We each have something, usually less than 100 years of life. It is our only opportunity to be conscious, and it is a tiny, tiny, tiny blip. Mm-hmm. And that blip has been interrupted by fools who decided that in order to prevent a pandemic that they feared from happening, that they had to risk creating it. They then risked creating it. They then lost control of it. And they have compromised humanity to an incalculable degree, right? Mm-hmm. That we have a new virus that we may never be rid of, that we may repeatedly get sick with across our lives, is such a colossal error. And the idea that these same people who made this colossal error about which weren't even aware they were doing it until it had already escaped the barn, right? That these people are in a position to mandate what you and I do in the face of a vaccine that they have done nothing but lie to us about, right? It is a biblical tragedy. Right? It is a Shakespearean level tragedy.
I think a lot of people in our country anyway are talking about, I can't wait till the mandates lift, as though that will restore us back to where we were. But that's not a remedy for the fear that put us here. That's not a remedy for the complacency that allowed our situation to become rabid and entrenched. It's not a therapeutic for the coercion that we allowed to take place and the normalization of things like nudge and behavioral insights propaganda at a national level. None of those things get fixed when the mandates are lifted. None of those things get fixed if COVID is magically eradicated.
No.
Those are not just individual psychological problems, but those are group psychological problems. And now with globalization on a global scale. So how do we address these psychological weaknesses and crutches within the whole human race that are now, coming back to what we started with, in our universities being taught as virtues?
Yeah, we had something deeply flawed, but highly functional, right? Something that could have been repaired. And instead of looking at what was wrong with it and being realistic about how to fix it and what rate we could reasonably expect it to get better, we foolishly allowed ourselves to become unmoored. And I don't think people have yet understood how dangerous it is to be unmoored in history. That we have cut ourselves loose and we are now adrift. And what we cannot say is where we will land. We cannot say that we will land anywhere at all, right? Our species is fragile. And the fact is, our continued existence was dependent on certain agreements that we had reached about how to treat each other, about how processes are required to change. And then suddenly we're in an era where we're seeing just absolutely processes that are absolutely antithetical to the fundamental nature of the West being deployed willy-nilly over trucker protests, right? They're going after bank accounts using these electronic blocks. It's just absolutely unbelievable with all the protections built into our system that we would allow this to take place and that we would think that we could go back. I mean, your point is exactly right. The disappearance of the mandates don't mean anything, because the real story is that we've become unmoored and we do not know where we're going to land.